Okay. So like I said, we're just going to do 6 practice problems that review and refresh what we did on Monday or Tuesday. So this time I'm doing it very close to what Delta Math does. Earlier this week, we learned about this symbol, which was the theta symbol. That's the one that represented all the angles. However, on Delta Math, you see A's and B's for your angles. So I wanted to go through several problems with you guys in case that was a little bit confusing. So the first one says find the sine of A. So what that means is that A is going to be my angle. I can completely ignore this B up here. And then from the angle A, I need to label my 3 sides: opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So that means that the 30, the one opposite the A, will be my opposite side. The hypotenuse is always the one directly across from the right angle, hypotenuse. And then that leaves the adjacent right next to the angle. All right. So then once you have the sides labeled correctly according to the A, then you can go ahead and figure out what sine is. We know sine is O over H. That comes from the SOHCAHTOA. Sine is always O over H, opposite over hypotenuse. So your opposite side would be the 30. The hypotenuse side would be the 50. And we're not even going to worry about reducing that or anything. We're just going to go ahead and set up these fractions and leave them just like they are. So that way it's less about the rationalizing and the reducing and more just about getting really comfortable with the SOHCAHTOA. All right, the next one is cosine, but of B. So now we shift all of our attention to the B angle. We can completely ignore this A. And if you're writing this down, see if you can label the O, the A, and the H. If you're not writing this down, see if you can still identify it just in your head. Hi, TJ, welcome. We're just doing a little bit of review from earlier this week. No new lesson for today, just some review problems. So this one should be your opposite. This one is your adjacent, and that is your hypotenuse. Okay, so cosine. So CAH, C-A-H. So cosine is the adjacent side, right here, over the hypotenuse side, right here. 48 over 60. So notice how when you have B versus A, it changes where the O and the A are set up. Right? Notice the difference here. This is O, but on this triangle, that's A. And it's because of where the angles are. Good question. So on the Delta Math assignment that I have for you, it actually doesn't ask you to reduce it. It kind of gives you 4 options as to which one is set up correctly, and you just have to choose it. So normally the answer would be yes, you should reduce it. But for this activity that you're going to do, they're just allowing you to leave it in unreduced form. Good question, Christian. All right, finally we have the tangent of A. So again, because we were working on A, we can completely ignore that that angle's even there. That doesn't mean anything to us. Opposite of the A would be the side that the angle is not touching. So here's your angle, right? Here's your angle. And notice if I extend it all the way out, the 16 is the opposite side, the one the angle is not touching. That's my opposite. Hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. And then your adjacent is the one that's next to it. So the first step is label it. Second step, look at your notes, see what tangent is. Tangent's O over A. That's SOHCAHTOA. And so you would have 16 for O, 63 for A. Just working on getting more comfortable with that. Then the next three we have are going to be our cosecant, secant, and cotangent. So I'll give you guys just a second to look at those three before we move on. Do we have any questions about that? All right, if you do end up coming up with any questions, you could always ask it at the end. That's completely fine too. All right, so here's the next three that we're going to work on. The first one says find cosecant of A. Remember, CSC is the abbreviation for cosecant. And so when we see the abbreviation CSC, we want to make sure we say the word cosecant. Now, these three, cosecant, secant, and cotangent, each one of them is kind of paired up with the sine, cosine, and tangent. So this first one's a lot like sine. Second one is paired up with cosine, and the third one with tangent. And that means all you have to do is flip that fraction. So I know that for cosecant, if sine is O over H, that means cosecant is going to be H over O. So I always think about the sine and the cosecant being paired up. So I'll either write them like one on top of the other or to the side of each other, but they're always kind of paired. I'll give you guys just a minute or so. If you're writing them out, great. If you're doing them in your head, great. If you're just checking to see if you know where the labels are, cool. I'll give you guys about a minute to look through that, those three problems. All right, so let's get started. Cosecant of A, which means A is going to be our angle. Ayamide, I know you the most out of everybody here, so I'm going to pick on you a little bit. Ayamide, which side would be the opposite of the A?
Um, 36.
Yes, good work. That's the opposite. Nice job. All right, Erica, what about you? What's the adjacent side?
Are you talking about the number?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, is it 77?
You got it. Good work. And then that would make the 85 the hypotenuse. Good. So then all we have to do is take the H number, 85, over the opposite side, 36. And again, we don't have to worry about reducing or anything for these type of problems. You can just kind of write it out. Again, it's multiple choice on your Delta Math. All right, really nice job. Secant of B. So I'm going to ignore this A. Here's B. And now I'm looking for which side is the opposite. So let's see. Devin, I know you pretty well too. What's the opposite side of B, Devin?
42.
Excellent, 42. And Ethan, what about the adjacent? Which is my adjacent side?
Would it be 70 or 56?
56, yeah. So the adjacent is the one next to B. So that one's kind of tricky because, again, both of the 70 and the 56 are next to it. But the hypotenuse is reserved for the one across from the right angle. So sometimes most of the time I label my hypotenuse before I label my adjacent. Yeah, good job. All right, secant is going to be the opposite of cosine. So H over A. H is 70. A is 56. All right, last one, cotangent of B. So here's the B. I can ignore the A, which means I'll label it the same way as we did the last one. Opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Cotangent is tangent flipped. So tangent is O over A. That makes this A over O. Right? And if you have these 6 written down, these 6 like sine is O over H, cosine is A over H, then it's easy to just look back and reference that as you're completing this. A is 40, O is 9. And there we are. All right. So hopefully that helped kind of refresh your memory, maybe clear up some things that you might have been struggling with. I see a few of you have already done your Delta Math assignment from yesterday, but if you haven't yet, hopefully that helped. And then you have a new one today that's just called Trig Part 2. So you can work on that. And it's just, again, your goal is to get 5 perfect in a row. So you have unlimited time, so you can go as slow as fast as you need. And then it'll just ask you to do 5 correct in a row. So be careful with that. Make sure you select the correct answer across the bottom. And you should be good, okay? So that won't take you probably more than 5-10 minutes if you work really slow.